Hello everyone and welcome back to Milo Farms. Well, we're out in the shop today working on a pretty exciting project. We've got this new split duct reverse kit we're going to be installing on this 2002 custom Weld Viper 2, and it has the Vortec V6 4.3 liter, and right now it has the model of reverse that they call the best reverse. And a couple of the downsides of this reverse is all the water and bubbles shoot out right underneath and shoot right under the boat and get sucked right back up in the pump. So it's not a very good reverse for being able to back up or stop quickly. Also, it doesn't have a whole lot of maneuverability. It does work okay. It won't get sand locked supposedly, but we're going to be replacing that. This particular one also needs new bushings and things up in the top and bottom, and then also the seal that's in here probably wouldn't hurt to replace it. So we're going to go ahead and take that all off, and we're going to go ahead and install this SDR model on it. As you can see the difference here, on this one, the bucket comes up from the bottom and closes and then shoots the jet underneath, straight underneath for reverse. The SDR model, we'll pick it up here so we can kind of look at it. So the nozzle moves inside, but the reverse bucket on the outside actually doesn't ever change direction. It just sits there. So the nozzle will shoot the water over here, which will shoot it out this way to the left, or it'll move over here, which will shoot it out this way, and in turn will also turn the boat that direction. So a couple things that are going to need to happen to replace this. First thing, we're going to need to take off the old one. Then we're going to need to go up into the control, the hand control near the driver, and switch it around. So this bucket is going to drop down to go into reverse, whereas this bucket raises up to go into reverse. So first thing we're going to do is start by disassembling this best nozzle and getting it off of here. We're going to undo this bolt right here and take this steering mechanism off. We're going to undo the jam nuts here, and as well as the linkage over here, and then we're going to take that piece off as well. That'll get us all disconnected. Then we're going to take off these 8 bolts, around 4 on each side, and take that nozzle off and set it to the side. So there's the back of the bowl with the nozzle taken off. You want to make sure you keep good track of this bowl bearing lubrication. American Turbine recommends every so many hours you grease that with a certain type of grease. You can find that in the owner's manual on their website. So make sure you keep up on that. There's another video that I have that is replacing the seals in that bowl. So if you want to take a look at that, you certainly can. So if you take a look over here, here is the 2 nozzles sitting next to each other now on the floor. The left is the new SDR that's going on. The right is the old best that's coming off. So that's kind of a side-by-side comparison. So we'll go ahead and open up the instructions and see what it takes to install this. And then we'll go up and do the hard part, which is going to be the controls up by the driver. So here's the instruction manual that we're looking at. Right now we're going to focus on this bottom part of putting the assembly on to the boat. So we'll go ahead and get this done. You got to bolt the bracket on the side, and then we'll do everything except for hooking up the linkage, because we have to go up and adjust the linkage up at the front. So here's what you have. These extra long screws are going to go on the right and left side in the middle where the extra bracket is holding it onto the bowl. Then these middle-sized screws are going to be the top and the bottom where it was bolted on originally. And then these short screws here are going to be the ones that hold this bracket onto the side of it for the mechanism for the linkage to go through. So we'll go ahead and get that hung on the boat and go from there. You want to make sure you put anti-seize on all these. Just a simple like Loctite anti-seize or something like that. I buy a big bucket of it here so I can use it for all kinds of things on the snowmobiles and the boat. So there the nozzle and bucket is all installed, and we're going to go ahead now, and we've already got the linkage landed where it's going to go. We need to figure out the steering to hook it up here with the pieces that came with it. Then we also need to figure out the adjustments on the cable. So I'm going to go ahead and start with the adjustments on the cable, and the first thing you want to do before you do that, you want to come up to your throttle mechanism on the side of your carburetor and disconnect the linkage so you're not working that mechanism back and forth and just filling the engine with fuel from the accelerator pump. So as we work the control back and forth, this won't touch the carburetor. It'll be able to just go back and forth freely. So here is the controller up by the driver's seat. And after reading the instruction manual for this controller and also the instruction manual that came with the new reverse assembly, it looks like what we're going to do is loosen these 3 screws right here and attempt to get this mechanism out of that hole a little bit so we can see the back of it. If that's not going to work, then we're going to figure out how to unbolt this actual panel and drop it away, because as you can see here, there's not a lot of play in those cables. So we'll go ahead and give that a shot. Alright, so tried taking the 3 bolts out. That is not going to work to be able to get the mechanism out to be able to look at it due to the shortness of those cables. I don't know if there's any way to get more cable slack up here. Maybe there is, but I'm not going to try to mess with it. I'm just going to undo the bolt right here on the back, right here on the back, and right under here on the back. And I'm going to lay a quilt over the seat here so we can kind of pull it out towards the seat and work on it. So once I get this all apart, we'll come back. So here's the back of the mechanism taken apart, and here's the new arm that we're going to be putting on. It's going to be going in place of this arm that's down below that's held on with that bolt. So remember, we've got the throttle cable disconnected so we can move this without risk of flooding the engine. We're going to go ahead and move this into forward, and that will allow us to get access to this bolt and then be able to pull this piece off. So we'll go ahead and do that. When you take that bolt out, you want to remember there is a spring underneath it. You don't want to have that fly off. So there's the piece taken off, and we're going to go ahead and flip it over, undo that cotter pin, and put the new one on. You want to make sure when you put the new one on that it's in the direction with this side out pointed up, so it'll be going like this. And when you put that cotter pin back in, you want to make sure that the tails of it are up above the bottom where my fingers are here, because it's going to barely clear the bottom of this panel when it passes by. Okay, the new part is in, and we've checked the adjustment should be pretty close. We're going to go ahead and just lightly hang this up back in place, and then we'll go back and check the adjustments at the back. So now that we got the control box all put back together, or at least lightly put back together, we're going to need to go ahead and adjust the reverse. So in the instructions, it says to place the shifter in reverse, in full reverse, and then go ahead and put the bucket in reverse, which is down, like it's just resting here, and then go ahead and adjust this linkage so it zeroes out at full reverse against the bumper. So we'll go ahead and do that. So there we are with the reverse all hooked up. It's sitting in about neutral right now, or just a little bit into reverse. You can see that we've gotten this linkage all adjusted here and up here. We've routed the cable in a way that it should have as little amount of pressure on it as possible. Well, that whole process took a little bit longer than expected, but I finally figured out what the issue was that I was having. When the bucket would go up into neutral, it was not really moving from the bottom position. And what I determined is this piece here was still at too much of an angle this way. So when you look at the picture of how American Turbine wants it, they want this piece pointed straight down, and then they want the throttle piece pointed straight back. So it should make an L shape that way and that way. What I was finding is that my throttle was, if I recall, up at an angle like this. And so after looking at it and trying to figure out how you would change that setting, I determined that on the front side here is a bolt. And once you take that bolt out and wiggle that piece off, under there is a spline shaft. So all you have to do is time the spline shaft into a position that matches their picture. Relock the spline shaft back down, and everything perfectly fell into place. So everything's done here, and I'll go ahead and put this back, and everything is adjusted at the back and working correctly. So go ahead and remount this. So there's the controller all installed and put back together. Everything looks good on this end and works like it's supposed to. So the steering has a lot less travel than the original steering. So the original steering would allow the steering wheel to turn maybe 3 turns or 4 turns from lock to lock. This one, if anything, maybe only 2 turns lock to lock. So to start with, what we're going to do is adjust this steering rod back into the boat to try to get us more in the middle of the steering travel. So I figure we'll probably thread that into the boat an inch or so to start with. All right, here it is all finished up. Everything's put together and functional. Probably going to go up one of the nights this week and test it out. So all in all, it took me about 5 hours to get this whole thing put together. It probably, if I went to go do it again right now, it'd probably be less than 2, now that I know what to expect for that control box up there. So everything's looking good, and seems like it's going to work really well. So I hope everybody enjoyed the video. Remember, you can't finish a project without getting started.